Welcome back to Earl Knows It All, and today we got a jam-packed show for you. A historic night in the NBA Finals, Game 3. Jokic, what can we say about him, man? There's not enough superlatives for us to put on top of this guy, man. He's an amazing player, man. Are the Heat in trouble now? Who knows, right? Also, one of my favorite players, Chris Paul, the legend, CP3, the point guard. He may be on the move. Some conflicting reports, but, essentially, it looks like his time with the Suns is over. And, of course, I've been trying to avoid this for the longest. It's just a ridiculous story in my opinion, man. But Ja Morant, Adam Silver's finally spoken on Ja Morant, and he has said that he's made his decision. So we'll get into the Ja Morant situation as well. All these things and more on Earl Knows It All, man. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get into it. So Game 3 of the NBA Finals was completed last night, man, and the Denver Nuggets were victorious 109-94 in that game. And Nikola Jokic, like we said, he's making history kind of every time he steps on the court almost, but really not one of those made-up stats this time. He's the first player in NBA Finals history with the 30, 20, and 10 triple-double. He finished the game with 32 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists. And to top that off, man, his running mate, his guy that won maybe the best two-man game in the NBA now, Jamal Murray, also dropped a 30-10-10 triple-double as well. He finished with 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. And, man, those guys are tough, man. We've seen this throughout the playoffs. We saw this in the bubble. And now with the added piece of Aaron Gordon and, KCP and all these pieces they have, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are a problem, man. And when they're on, it's kind of tough to stop them. I would venture to say, and I'm going to say, they're unstoppable pretty much, man. The Heat are overmatched right now at this point. The last episode I did, of course, I predicted that the Nuggets would win this series in 6. And just off the respect that I have for Spo and for Jimmy Butler and how hard the Heat fight, I figured this series could go 6. I still think that may be the outcome of it. It could go 7, though. You never know. I think the Heat will still have more to say about this. They could win as early as Game 4, actually. For my pocket's sake, a little wager I put down. I hope they do win Game 4. But yeah, this has been a good series, man. Like I said, the Miami Heat are a tough team, man, but at some point, you got to look at this and say, man, the Nuggets might just have too much, and too much is Nikola Jokic. He's right now the guy that seems to be like the force. And let's kind of talk about that, man. Is it time to start thinking about what Nikola Jokic is, the Joker, what his place in the history of this game is, man? I've heard some other podcasters and other people, not necessarily sports related, but just kind of talking about Jokic isn't necessarily, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon now. But, I mean, if you're a basketball fan, you've known this guy's been pretty good for a while. He's won 2 MVPs in the league. So you don't just sneak up on somebody by being the league's MVP, which essentially it puts you at least in the conversation for best player in the NBA, if not the best player. But, yeah, I think even more so than looking at just kind of his status in the league now, if they win this finals, if he continues to do what he's doing with these, 30-point triple doubles, 30-20, getting 15 assists in games, all of that kind of stuff. If he continues on this path and they win this finals, what do we look at Jokic's career as far as, his standing in the league? And he's only 28 years old. I think he's been in the league 8 or 9 years now, maybe. So it's kind of, you don't want to put the cart before the horse, of course, but man, you got to respect what the guy's done, man. You have to respect what he's done in this league already. Now, I will venture to say that I love, as much as I love Jokic's game, I will say this. I don't think he should have won MVP last year. I think he had Joel Embiid's MVP, and maybe he should have won it this year. I think the first year he won it, we had some Giannis fatigue because of the same thing that we kind of had with Jokic this year. Well, we can't give it to him 3 times in a row, and he hasn't won the championship, hasn't even been to the finals. And of course, at that point, Giannis went on and won the finals, finished the closeout game with a 50-20 closeout game. So kind of the same parallels here that we see with Jokic, how he's kind of going through this NBA finals, right? So interesting question there, man. I'm going to reserve time as far as not saying exactly where I think he is in the historical sense of the league right now. I've heard some conversation from guys like Chris Broussard saying, is he better than Dirk now? Is he better than KD? Is he better than I think the conversations has to be had now, definitely. But let's let him win the championship first and see how that goes. But that's another thing too, man. So we've kind of become so tied into like ring culture and championships. It reminds me of when music kind of turned to how many records you sold, right? And this is like a 50 Cent phenomenon, I guess, for you young people who don't maybe follow 50 Cent. When he started selling a lot of records, we only judge musicians by how many records they sold, not even necessarily what we thought artistically about the music. They can't be the best if they only sold their first week numbers with it. So, that narrative kind of got pushed. If you're a fan of basketball and a naked eye of just watching the game and seeing how guys play, you got to respect what Jokic has done. You have to respect what guys like Chris Paul have done, going back to Charles Barkley. I'll even say Karl Malone, I guess, but Patrick Ewing, guys like that, man, who you watched, who they came up against some of the greats in the league or played in an era where it was some guys that were dominating the league who were the upper echelon. And unfortunately, you're born at the wrong time. You run into guys like Michael Jordan or Steph Curry or, LeBron James or whoever, and, you don't get as many rings as maybe, or don't get a ring at all sometimes. So, but I say all that to get off this soapbox, but you can watch Jokic, and I don't, I'm even falling victim to that a little bit and saying, oh, if they win 2 more games, then yeah, he's one of the greatest players. But if they don't, he's not. Like, I mean, basketball is a team sport. Now I do agree that there is some that we should have some accountability as far as like, hey, you're playing an 8 seed or you're up against this team that you should win this series. You should be able to come out on top and be victorious. But a lot of stuff goes into that. Coaching goes into that, man. I mean, like I said, even with Jokic, his second and third best players missed essentially 2 full seasons the last couple of years, or definitely missed the playoffs 2 years ago. And then Jamal Murray missed, a full season after missing the playoffs, which leads me to, speaking of Jamal Murray, the last time we saw Jamal Murray before this run that he's on now was in the bubble. And it kind of left us thinking, is this a manufactured kind of thing where because he was in the bubble, because he had that kind of environment that was created where there were no fans, there was no home court advantage, any of that stuff. Is this why this guy was doing this? Versus, is he really a player like that? Now, Jamal Murray's never been an all-star. He's, like I said, kind of fighting his way back from the ACL. But one thing I will say is this guy in the playoffs, man, the times he's been in there, he has shown up huge. He's done some historic stuff that I think in that series against Utah a couple years ago, him and Donovan Mitchell with the 50-point games going back and forth was some stuff that no one ever done, and now to come up with a 34, 10, and 10 game in a NBA Finals game, man, like to dominate like that, to do what he did against the Lakers early on with the huge game that he won for them. I think he had a 24-point fourth quarter or something like that where he went crazy in one of those games. The guy just keeps performing in these big moments, man. So where should we put Jamal Murray in the echelon right now today of point guards in the league, man? Is he a top 10 point guard? Is he a top 5 point guard? Is he not in your top 10? I'm going to get my top 10 a little bit later, and I'm sure it's going to be, a little bit of consternation about it, but I do know it all. So it's my top 10. That's how I feel about it, man. But you guys can tell me what you think. But yeah, you got to respect what the guy's doing to be able to do it in the big moments. And like I said, I kind of let the show off by saying Chris Paul, one of my favorite players of all time. I'm an Atlanta guy, obviously. I thought Chris Paul was coming to Atlanta in the draft. We took Marvin Williams instead, and look at that, man. But Chris Paul is one of those guys that hasn't had the playoff success, but has just had a steady career every year. He's one of the top point guards in the league, if not the top point guard, and for a long stretch of time. But Jamal Murray has never been considered that way. But I'll tell you one thing, and one thing that I love about Jamal Murray, and that Denver team, I think what makes them work so well is that Jamal Murray feels like he is, if not equally as good as Nikola Jokic, he probably feels like he's the best player on that team, and he plays like that, and he carries himself like that. And I think he's been doing that for a long time, even at Kentucky. Like when he was out there with Tyus Etney, I think he was on the team with at the time, and those guys, he felt like he was the best player on the loaded Kentucky team, and wound up going 7th overall. Like he was a very good basketball player, even back in college. So I've always liked Jamal Murray's game, man. He's a knockdown shooter, or he was more of a shooter, you thought, but he can be a playmaker now, man. And the beauty of how him and Jokic kind of play off of each other, man. I guess that's even a better question. Is he even the point guard on the team, right? Because, I mean, Jokic handles the ball so much and does so much and runs their offense. So, in this league now that we say that they're, positionless basketball, Jokic is a point center, I guess. What do we consider Jamal Murray? Is he like a 2? He handles the ball a lot too and runs a lot of pick and roll. So, I think Jamal Murray should be in your top 10 if he isn't. And I may even venture to say, just based on what he's doing in these playoffs and how he continues to show up in the playoffs, the proof is in the pudding, man. Maybe he's a top 5 point guard. Who knows? Y'all tell me what y'all think, man. Like I said, I have another video that will give you my actual top 10. So I'm going to run down that list. But my wheels got turning watching that game and saying, man, Jamal Murray, we might be disrespecting this man. I don't know if it's because he's from Canada, or, he plays in Denver. He kind of got all the odds stacked against him as far as that's concerned. But we need to put some respect on this Denver Nuggets team, man, and what they're doing. And those two guys they got, Jokic and Murray, they are definitely a problem, man. Now, with all that being said, what do we think about the Miami Heat, and are they going to be able to bounce back? Now they're down 2-1. They got that game too and kind of came out and, like I said, came out on fire, took Denver's best shot, won the game. And the momentum swings and how the media and how fans kind of live and die with each one of these games is actually kind of funny, man. But you're so close to the promised land. So that's why it's so much emphasis placed on each game. Like, man, each game is kind of its own entity. Like, dang, they lost game 3. What are they going to do now? Home court advantage taken back by Denver. But what Miami can do in game 4 is handle their business, win game 4. We knew Denver was going to be a tough out, right? They're not. Denver, quote unquote, is the more talented team, I guess. But I think both of these teams are very good basketball teams. So, yeah, man, I think my mind wants to tell me that it's a wrap, just like it did after game 1. Like, I don't see any way that Miami can beat these guys. However, Miami just finds a way. So, I think they'll get one more game, man. I'm going to stick with kind of my mindset of what I thought originally with this series coming into it. I think Miami is going to get another game. I said it would be 4-2 Denver. I think Miami has one more in them. I think Friday. Game 4 is on Friday. I think they'll handle the business in game 4. Now, anything can happen. I still feel like this could be a toss-up series, actually, man. Even though I don't see a way for them stopping Jokic. Jamal Murray's going crazy, too. You got to factor in just that Miami Heat. We've seen them do it over and over and over again in these playoffs. And, we've doubted them throughout, but they just continue to do their thing. They've been out on the canvas almost, 8 count, but they get back up when they keep fighting, man. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the series plays off. I'm going to give you guys more content, and I'm back locked in now. So we'll see how the remaining games of this series play out. But I think Miami, for me, I'm going to say Miami. is going to bounce back in game 4. They'll take game 4. They've got to take game 4. It's going to be the long kiss goodnight. They're going to get beaten 5. And like I said, I think this will go 6. I think Jimmy and Spo got one more big performance in them. Bam. Gabe Vincent didn't play that well last night. Max Strus didn't. Caleb Martin hasn't found himself in this series. One of those guys who has been stepping up, will eventually step up and handle their business and help Jimmy get a win. And Jimmy hasn't really had one of those early playoff Jimmy games either. So he's due. I think they're going to get one more out Friday night. Could be. Well, it won't be it could be their last game if they lose that game in Miami. So I think they're going to come out and fight, man, and force a game 6 at the very least. Coming up next, we're going to get into a story that dropped right before the game or a couple hours before the game, as reported by Chris Haynes, one of the legends in the league, the point guard. I mentioned his name a couple times, Chris Paul. He's on the move. What's going to happen with him? Stay tuned. And welcome back to Earl Knows It All, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're trying to get our subscribers up, man. We're trying to grow this thing, man. We got great basketball content, of course, football content coming up, training camps, all that stuff. But right now, we're going to get into my guy, man, one of my favorite players of all time, Chris Paul, the point guard. It was reported by Chris Haynes of TNT, Bleacher Report. I think he may still work for Yahoo. I'm not sure. That Chris Paul will be waived by the Phoenix Suns before June 28th. That is the deadline that they have before his contract becomes fully guaranteed. So right now he's scheduled to make $30 million if he's on the roster after June 28th. If they waive him, it'll only be $15 million that they have to pay him. There's a lot of kind of mechanisms that they can do to kind of stretch that money out and do a lot of things to save some money to go get some other players because Phoenix is struggling with depth. Of course, when Chris Paul got hurt in that series against Denver, which seems to always happen, man, to Chris Paul, it was kind of like, okay, they're going to have to figure something else out because they can't depend on this guy to be there. As much as I hate to say that, man, like at this point, he's 37, I think, maybe 38, about to be 38. He still, when he's on the court, can give you some veteran leadership, can produce as well a little bit. Maybe not at the level that he did, of course, in his prime, but you can't really depend on him right now at this point. And Phoenix is trying to win a championship. Matt Ishbia, their new owner, has brought in Frank Vogel. They're looking to try to – they got a window that is going to be short with KD, who isn't a guy that you really can depend on either as far as being healthy all the time. So they got to strike now. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Now, I will say Shams did come back and indicate that right now they have not said that they're going to waive him, but they're exploring all those options. Being waived is one of them. They could still possibly trade him if that is something that is in the mix. Or, and I even saw Shams say this, they could waive him and re-sign him essentially as well for maybe the league minimum or something. Don't know why Chris Paul would do that for them. But hey, maybe he wants to stay in Phoenix and help the team get some additional players. You never know. But it's very interesting to kind of see what may happen here. I got a list of about, I would say, 4 or 5 teams that, could possibly use Chris Paul or where I would like to see him go. Chris Paul, I think he's going into his 18th or 19th season maybe next year. So he wants to win a championship. Like, that's the only thing that he hasn't really done in his league at this point. He did get to the finals a couple years ago. And they were up 2-0 and they ended up losing that series to Milwaukee and Giannis. But I would say this, man. His family, I think, still lives in LA. The 2 LA teams are always going to be teams that come up. Now, the fit with the Lakers would be interesting because the Lakers do they want D'Lo? Do they not want D'Lo? D'Lo gets played off the court all the time. But can you really have a team of Anthony Davis, Chris Paul, and LeBron James and expect to be able to even make the playoffs based on, the injury history of these guys and age and all of that for LeBron and Chris Paul, as well as just none of those guys are going to play more than 60 games probably, and that may be being generous saying 60 games. So I would like to see maybe that banana boat reunion with Chris Paul. And I just think, Chris Paul, that would be full circle. He was supposed to have been a Laker before David Stern hated back in the day. So him going to the Lakers would be interesting, man. The Clippers are another team too. The Clippers, but you kind of run into the same thing with that. So you got Paul George, who you can't count on necessarily be healthy. Kawhi Leonard's probably not going to be healthy at all either. And then you add Chris Paul to that. Plus, I think they may want to keep Russ. It just depends on if Russ is going to, stay for the league minimum, whatever. I don't think they can offer Russ a big contract. So that's an interesting dynamic. Russ is a Paul George guy. He wanted Russ there. Russ performed well in the playoffs too. So that'd be an interesting pickup. Now, if we're going to go with what Sean says, right? The Mavs. I think the Mavs, a trade to the Mavs could be interesting because you got a workhorse in Luka, right? If Kyrie Irving is not the guy that they want, all the shenanigans with Kyrie saying he's trying to recruit LeBron and he ain't even on the team yet. So I think it's like Jedi mind tricks. He's trying to make sure he gets his $200 million. But do you really want to depend on Kyrie, who may not show up, may decide not to play? I mean, Kyrie is a great basketball player, but dependability, he has injury problems, and sometimes he can kind of go off the rails a little bit, to be generous, I'll say. Even though I love Kyrie, and I think he has great intentions, right? But if you're building a team and you want some consistency, and plus the stuff that Luka was kind of saying at the end of the year is weird to me. I think that's something to look out for, where he's like, oh, I'm not having fun, and he wasn't talking like that before they got Kyrie. So I don't know if those guys have meshed the best, but I think the Mavs will be an interesting addition. I think that'll be an interesting addition if the Mavs could get Chris Paul. Him and Jason Kidd played on Team USA together, played against each other for so many years. I think they got a good relationship as well. So you play him with Luka with Chris Paul, he wouldn't have to do as much. Chris Paul did this kind of thing with Houston when they had James Harden and him. He could play off ball as well. He's shown he can play off ball with Devin Booker. So I think he can do that. It'll probably be less wear and tear on him in those moments as well. And let's say, and maybe I should do like a fake trade or something, I don't know, but you could also maybe throw DeAndre Ayton in there. Move that 10th pick that Dallas has. So you get Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton. I think that's like $60 million in contracts. If you add Kyrie Irving, he signs a max. Now, I don't know if KD would want to play with Kyrie again. Haven't heard him say anything bad about him, but, they're still supposedly friends, I guess. So they're brothers or whatever it is. And he said he'd never leave 7 before he left 7 and got traded. So maybe those guys get reunited again in Phoenix, man, with Kyrie and a sign and trade. Send Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton over to Dallas, and you throw in Tim Hardaway Jr. to make the salaries match, or Reggie Bullock or whoever. I guess Tim Hardaway Jr. would be the easiest guy to put in there. And maybe a JaVale McGee or something like that goes back to Phoenix. He's played for them before. They just kind of need a center that can defend and, give them some rebound and stuff like that in Phoenix is what they feel. They feel like they're not getting that kind of toughness from DeAndre Ayton. So that would be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I don't know if Dallas is interested in that, but that's one of the teams you can go to. I got the Knicks on my list just because we keep hearing the Knicks and his CAA connection with Leon Rose, his former agent. So that wouldn't make sense to me to have Jalen Brunson and Chris Paul in the same backcourt. It's too small of a backcourt. Like I said, Tibbs would definitely probably end Chris Paul's career before preseason or training camp was over with, running him in the ground. So don't know if that will happen. And, of course, based on what Sean says, maybe they waive him, stretch him out, only have $5 million cap hit, or $3 million. I think they can stretch him for 5 years. So if they waive him before the 28th, it counts as $15 million against the cap. They can then stretch that money out for 5 years, which would be $3 million or 3.16, I think is what I heard, million a year. So they would only get a $3 million cap hit instead of a $30 million cap hit if they kept him on the roster. They can re-sign him and then have some cap flexibility, be under the luxury tax, be able to add guys on the mid-level exception. So they can add like a $10 million player. You still got Landry Shamet, who you can trade maybe, so that could be a mechanism that will work as well. That's the 5th team I would say that he can go to. Sleeper team. if he's just gonna go somewhere, I would like maybe Milwaukee. Put him in the backcourt with Drew Holiday and Giannis and Middleton. I think that could work. Drew Holiday can slide over to the 2. He can defend 2s and 1s. Let Chris Paul run that offense. That would be an interesting fit too. But I'm interested to see what happens here, man. I like Chris Paul. He's had a great career. I would love to see him get a ring, man. I don't know if that's in the cards for him though. And unfortunately, like I just talked about earlier in the show, we have this ring culture. If you watch Chris Paul, to me, I used to get in arguments with one of my homeboys about is Rondo better than him? Is Darren Williams better than him? It was always Chris Paul for me, man. Even when Jason Kidd or Steve Nash were kind of later on in their career, those were still guys who you talking about. This guy, he's one of the best point guards to ever play the game, man. So it'd be interesting. Keep a look keep your eye on that. We're gonna keep our eye on it and see what happens. Which team would be the best fit for him? Where does he go? We'll keep our ears to the street on that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Earl Knows It All. And unfortunately, I've been dodging this story since when I first started the show. I tried to avoid talking about it. Of course, I started right before the playoffs. This guy came back from a suspension in the playoffs right before the season ended, Ja Morant. And now he has a second suspension pending. I try not to call people stupid. I try not to get on my soapbox because we've all made mistakes in life, right? And you never know what a person's going through. But when I originally got a text from one of my friends saying, "There's no way Ja Morant did this again," I had no idea what he was talking about. And I looked at the video and I couldn't really see anything until the internet's always going to give you a still photo or something. So they're going to show you. And I said, this has to be the single dumbest thing I've ever seen someone do, just based on all the circumstances right after what had just happened to him. So earlier in the week, at one of the media availabilities, the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, did say that he has gotten all the information he needs. They know additional things now. They know what was going on. And he has made a decision on what's going to happen with Ja, but out of respect for the NBA Finals and these two teams that they were going to reserve putting that information out and levying the suspension or whatever the punishment will be on Ja until after the finals are completed. So it's kind of like one of those wait till we get home moments, when you did something wrong and you was out and your mama told you, "Oh, wait till we get home." I'm like, woo, I got something for you, boy. You acting out, you showing your butt in this store. Wait till I get home. This is exactly what Ja's going through right now with the NBA, right? A lot of people or insiders are saying they think Ja could be suspended up to half the season. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe 25 games. Who knows, man? Maybe up until Christmas or after Christmas. Maybe he comes back after All-Star break. Who knows what it's going to be? It could be less than that, really. We don't really have any precedents for this. Now, I will say, I guess Gilbert Arenas got suspended the time he did. I was talking to my wife about it. She was like, well, she was the one who told me that Ja's, I guess the shade room must have had this or something, that Ja Morant's defense is it was a toy gun. People have been suspended for less than that. Gilbert Arenas, if you remember, was in the warm-up line with his fingers motioning like he had a gun. We never saw him touch a gun at all, and he got suspended. So the toy gun thing, like what did my guy Hov say, man? A gun in your hand and that's all you can come up with? Like, you had all this time to come up with a defense and that's your defense? It was a toy gun? No, Ja. Come on, man. We're not buying that, man. Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. And, I wanted to kind of be sympathetic towards him. And when you hear that that's the defense, it's almost like, okay, I don't think this boy learned yet, man. Like, or he's getting bad advice from somebody or something. Like, at this point, it is what it is, man. You're gonna get suspended. You just potentially lost, or not potentially, it has happened now. You didn't make the All NBA team. If this doesn't happen, he's an All NBA guy. I'm 99.9% sure, based on his team being the 2 seed, based on the season he had, numbers wise, he's an all-star, all that stuff. He was going to be in there as an All NBA guy. You just lost $40 million for the first offense. And you come back right afterwards and do this, after in the press conference to end the season, you say, it's my fault. I got to be better. I can't be a distraction. And you do this again. And I heard people say you should be able to have guns and you should be able to do this. And that's why I say I didn't really want to touch on this topic because it's just so many different aspects of this that is like, but at the end of the day, what we do have to do is be responsible for our own actions, man. Only you can be responsible for what you do. You know, nobody literally put a gun to Jai's head and said, you got to hold this gun on IG Live. Nobody's making you go on IG Live. I'm a dinosaur. Y'all can see the gray hair in my face and all that, man. And I wore my hat today because I didn't shave my head, but I don't understand for the life of me why you need to go on live anyway. And if you are going to go on live, or if your friend is going to go on live, why do we need to be playing music and showing the gun, man? I don't like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's it. Like, and I've heard people say, oh, his dad needs to talk to him. Like, at some point, somebody, and I think you have to speak to people who've been there before too. So maybe this is a cry for help. I don't know. That's why I've reserved judgment and not been so harsh on the young man, because obviously something's not clicking to him. You know, either he's a knucklehead for real or he just doesn't know how to deal with everything that's going on in his life. And now I got some young siblings who are around Jai's age, and nephew who's a little bit older than Jai, some that's a little bit younger than Jai, who I try to talk to, and I don't try to preach to them. I try to let them live their life, but try to give them some advice. What I do know is a lot of times with young people, man, they think they know it all, just like Earl knows it all. And when I was that age, I thought I know it all too, but that is definitely facetious. You have to learn something from somebody who's been there before, man. I remember the viral clip last season of LeBron telling Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bain and all them guys, hey, y'all be respectful, man. Just because y'all respect what's going on here. I'm still LeBron. Just because y'all winning this game, y'all need to relax. And they say they want to smoke with everybody, but you have to respect something, man. You have to respect those that have come before you. And just on a pure, hey, these guys, they're at where I'm at. They're the face of the league. I want to be there. Or maybe he doesn't want to be there, but I've been thrust into this situation where I'm headed towards being the face of the league. I need to go talk to LeBron. I need to go talk to Steph Curry, or one of these guys who've been in the league. A Chris Paul, again, who's been the player president, of the union. Guys who've been there, who were young guys who came into this league in a case of a LeBron and has not had any missteps. You can say a misstep was saying he's taking his talents to Miami, but if that's what you got, that's a guy you want to go talk to, man. Now, I'm all for competing and saying, hey, you want to smoke with them and we want them and all that, but you are a entity at this point. You're worth over $200 million in earnings that you've gotten. Nike, Gatorade, all this stuff. This is more than a game. This is big business. And maybe, you were thrust into this and didn't know that, this was going to come, and it came to you kind of fast, and you kind of trying to, but at some point you got to stop and say, okay, I can't. My homeboys who I'm with, who ain't never did this before, I love y'all. Y'all can kick it with me, but I got to go holler at these people who know. And I saw Tony Allen when he was on KG Certified a couple weeks ago. A guy that's in Memphis, has been in Memphis, played for Memphis, has some ties there, said he's reached out to him and hasn't gotten a response. KG, another guy who's been through that, who's seen the ups and downs of this, man, who, grew up and been in some hood situations, but also, and you can be hood, you can be yourself. Nobody's telling you not to be yourself, but you got to be smart too, as well, for your own safety, because these guys out here in the streets, man, they playing for keeps. So if they think you got the heat on you, they not, even if they don't think you got the heat on you, they not asking no questions. They coming to see you, or they want to test and see, is it really what you say it is? Because they don't have nothing to live for. But you have a child, you have, a beautiful future ahead of you. You are affecting so many different people's lives. So I know a lot of people say it's not worth, he shouldn't get suspended. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't break a law. I think for his own good, he needs to sit with himself for a moment and get his life together and understand what he wants to do. Now, I don't know that he can do that just with this summertime, based on kind of what he's doing now, or based on, the last 8 game suspension he got, a month he had off to go to rehab or whatever it was. He needs to really take some time to do some work and say, okay. And like I said, that's an opportunity where maybe he can reach out to a guy like a Tony Allen or a Zebo, Zach Randolph, or LeBron James, or a Steph Curry, one of those guys, and say, hey, man, I'm spiraling. I don't got the answers. I need you to like kind of, can I get some game from you? How did you deal with this? Nobody's ever been through what LeBron has been through, man. No, the height from high school all the way. So he is the perfect person to go holler at. And I know you want to beat him, and I know that's a rival that you're trying to get at and all that stuff, but I would hope that he would be able to link with somebody like that. And I'm not telling you got to be buttoned up like LeBron, or LeBron is my age, so these guys look at LeBron like an old man. They probably don't. Like I said, I get how the kids move and they want to do TikTok dances and listen to NBA YoungBoy and all that, but you also have to talk and seek out the people who have been there before you. So if Ja Morant ever sees this, I don't know. If somebody in his family sees this, whatever, cool. But I'm just want to put that out there in the atmosphere that hopefully he can link with someone that has been through this, can get some information from them, help. You need a mentor, essentially, man. A guy that can kind of help him, who he can call on and say, hey, man, it's a lot going on right now. I ain't know I was going to be the face of the league. I didn't know, I got Nike, who they want me to be the guy. I got Gatorade, want me to be the guy. The league is pushing me. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't even recruited that highly. I was, I just wanted to hoop. This ain't just a game, man. It's more than a game. And it's $1 billion at stake. That's why you're getting the pressure from the league to put you back in. They should have helped you and saw that you were spiraling and said, hey, no, we need to sit down and really get right. But they thought, okay, maybe this guy, he hasn't had any prior situations or anything. We can get him back out on the court. It's the best of both worlds. We clean this up. It's a PR issue. This ain't a PR issue anymore. It's you need to get your life in order and figure out what you want to be thing. So that's my soapbox with the Ja Morant thing, man. I hope that he gets, some clarity on what he needs to do going forward. I'm praying for the young man, man. I'm not going to down him and talk bad about him or call him stupid or say. I will say the acts that he has done is stupid, but I don't know what he's going through. I never had $200 million at 23 and, had to navigate through all that and have the whole, world, probably what you feel like the whole world is on your back. So, and being a father and all that stuff, trying to navigate through all that, so many people pulling you different ways. So I get it. Like I said, hopefully everything works out for him. We'll see what the suspension is after the finals. And at this point, basketball is secondary to his life, in my opinion. And not even on, he's going to kill himself. Just sometimes you got to self-evaluate and say, okay, what am I doing? Let me get myself back together. Let me get rooted and grounded into something real. And then, let me move forward with a plan of action to make sure that I can be as successful as I want to be, whatever that looks like to him. And, for his child's sake and his family's sake and all the people that love him, hopefully that happens. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Earl Knows It All. It's been a great season so far, man. I'm really enjoying talking basketball with you all, a little bit of entertainment as well. I saw a couple movies and stuff too that I want to get into a little bit later on, maybe this week or at the top of next week, that I'll maybe do some reviews on. So we'll see. But again, tell a friend, man. Like and subscribe. Do me a favor. Right now, stop what you're doing. Subscribe to my channel, man. We're giving you great content. We're going to pick back up as well on our daily affirmations and all that too. I apologize. Like I said, life has been life. And so I've been out here living life a little bit, trying to spend time with the family since school's out and enjoy them. So again, thank you guys, man. Like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and stay tuned. We'll be back.